What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be talking about some things that you can do, some advice that I can give you if it's your first season of football altogether or your first season of tackle football. Now, I'm going to talk about some experiences that I had with my first year of tackle football. I actually don't remember what I was feeling or too much of what I was going through my first year of football, because I started playing football when I was probably like second or third grade, so obviously a long time ago, but I do remember a lot about my first year of actual tackle football. So I was always a flag football guy, played flag football for years. That's just before it got like really popular. I think now flag football is obviously a lot more popular. A lot of you guys watching this are probably career flag guys too, about to enter high school or about to play Pop Warner the first time in your 7th and 8th grade year. Totally normal. I've been in your shoes and I remember a lot about that process, so hopefully this can help you out and give you some insight. But my first year, freshman football, was my first year in tackle. First time putting on pads, first time putting on a helmet, first time getting like legitimately hit. So there was a lot of things that you had to deal with, right? I can imagine you guys watching this video, if it's your first season, you're probably a little bit anxious. You're probably like nervous about like not sure what to expect. Will the coaches like me? Or the coach is going to be harder on me? It's no longer like my dad coaching me. Is it going to be, am I going to be able to take a hit? Because you hear all these stories of people saying like, oh, well, the first time that you got hit, you either know if you're cut out for football, if you know if you're not. And the reason why I make this is to let you all know that you're probably going to be okay. It's not the end of the world to feel those feelings. It's not like you're not like cut out for the sport if you're a little bit nervous and apprehensive about that, because we all felt that. I felt that. I was like, I'll give you perfect example. Like, I know my first week in pads and a helmet, I was pretty comfortable being in a pads and a helmet because I played quarterback, and I was pretty comfortable throwing in pads and a helmet just because of training that I did. And we're going to talk about later on in this video some drills and some training methods that can help get you ready for the first season of pads. But I remember the biggest thing was just like, how am I going to stack up against all these people, right? Like, I'm walking into a situation where I was a career flag player, always thought I was pretty good, but there are a lot of guys that have been playing tackle football from the same time I started playing football, 2nd, 3rd grade. Like, how do I stack up against those dudes? And I think that something I did really well was not compare myself to where they're at in their game. I just focused on my game. So day in and day out, I was focused on improving. I wasn't focused on, well, they have more experience than I do. Does that mean that they're going to be better than them? I wasn't worried about the other players on the field. I was worried about just my game and how I got better, and week in and week out, that's how I approached it. So I remember walking in on our first practice, and they split everybody up into position groups, and I was sitting there with the quarterback group. There's probably 15 quarterbacks, right? Now, half of them can't even throw the ball. They just think they can play quarterback. Half of them can only throw it far. And there's probably like 2 or 3 other guys that you have to really compete with, especially if you know what you're doing at the QB position. So I would say the biggest piece of advice from that experience I could give you is don't worry about other people. Don't compare where you're at in your game to people who have been playing for forever, because they have a little more experience than you do. But I feel you could learn faster than they learn because you're more mature, you're older, no matter where you're at in your game and when you were joining the game of football, right? Now, let's talk about like the apprehensiveness of getting hit and the apprehensiveness of maybe not being able to perform. So I remember my very first scrimmage. I went to Servite High School, which is a school in Anaheim, California. It's a decently sized football school. Like, it was probably like 3rd best at the time in our, like, I guess you could say state. Like, the 2 big ones are like Mater Dei and then Bosco, and then Servite was kind of like a close 3rd, maybe 4th at the time. And I remember our first scrimmage was against a team called Long Beach Poly. So Long Beach Poly was, Servite's, they get a lot of like affluent people, like affluent families. I wasn't one of those families, but you know, we could afford the education, but a lot of like affluent families send their kids there, right? Like, you know, if you're familiar with California, you know a little bit about Orange County, a lot of money in Orange County, right? So I didn't really associate too much with those people just because I didn't grow up there. I grew up in LA County, but you know, Long Beach Poly is not in the greatest area. They don't get the silver spoon type kids. They get a lot of kids who are not from the greatest areas, and that's how they play football. They play football very aggressive. They're, you know, and again, that's part of the game, right? But they play football very aggressive. They're a dirtier team. They're very, you know, skilled, fast, not the most disciplined. You guys all know the types of teams that I'm talking about. So that was my first game ever in pads. So I'm getting hit late. I'm getting popped in the head. I'm getting, you know, popped in the ribs, like everything you could imagine, and you're gonna be okay. It's not the end of the world. You feel a little bit of pain after, but it's not like you're gonna die, you guys. Like, so I just say that because if you're apprehensive about that type of stuff, you'll get used to it. You will be totally fine as soon as you get that first hit. And if you love football, you'll be cool. It won't be the end of the world. So now we're gonna get into some things that you can do to help you prepare for your first tackle season or your first actual football season in the off season. So when you get there, you're not like a complete fish out of water. Now fellas, if you were a quarterback or wide receiver watching this video and you would like to train with myself and my staff of coaches, we're gonna be traveling out to 11 more cities across the entire country for 2-day long QB and wide receiver training camps. So if you guys go to that very first link in the description below, that's where you can sign up. Our next camp is gonna be in Austin, Texas. That camp is completely sold out, but then we'll be heading out to Las Vegas, Nevada, Seattle, Washington, Chicago, Illinois, Newark, New Jersey, Birmingham, Alabama, Houston, Texas, Boston, Massachusetts, Columbus, Ohio, Boise, Idaho, and finishing off our camp tour in Los Angeles, California. So guys, if you're local to any one of those cities, you'd like to train with myself, my staff, go to that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you there. Let's get back to this video. Now, what are some drills, some workouts, some exercises you can do, maybe some mistakes that I made getting ready for your first season of tackle? So I think the smartest thing that I did is, like, after my last flag football game ended, if you will, I want to say it's probably like November, December of my 8th grade year. It's funny how I still remember that, but I remember immediately, probably took a couple weeks off and then immediately helmet, pads, started throwing. Just that's the way you're gonna play football now, so you have to get used to that as soon as possible. I didn't break the bank buying the most expensive helmet, expensive shoulder pads. If you want to, by all means, go for it. But you can just get cheap equipment because you're training, especially if you're a receiver, linebacker, runner. You're just getting used to moving around with the stuff on because that's what you're gonna be wearing now. One mistake that I did make though, I never trained with actual football pants on. So you could go to Dick's Sporting Goods and get those built-in pads to the pants type football pants. You don't have to get the girdle and all that until later on when you're actually playing on the team. But that was something that I felt I had to get used to, and I didn't like it, and it felt a little uncomfortable, was how uncomfortable the pants were. So I recommend getting pants, helmet, shoulder pads, throwing with those on as soon as possible. Now, something I was also very lucky to have is I had a quarterback coach when I was an 8th grader, and that quarterback coach knew it was my first season getting ready for tackle, and what he did is he got one of those blocking pads that you see linemen use or linebackers or whoever, and after every throwing drill from probably, I would say, May until August 1st, which is when the season started, I was getting hit. So I would throw, bam, get popped. I would throw, bam, get popped. Sometimes he'd put me to the ground just to get me used to that contact feeling. So if you guys are doing drill work, you have a partner with you, a friend, your brother, your dad, mom, whoever, have them hit you. Getting used to any type of contact is gonna make it that much easier when you actually get the pads on and it's time to go, because it's just a different world. Think of it like a fighter, right? Everybody looks good on the punching bag, and then you put an actual person in front of them, and then you got a punch coming at you and you get hit, all of a sudden your technique goes out the window, you don't know how to throw a punch. That's what I can equate it to, right? So just make sure that you're taking care of those things first. Now, another thing that I recommend, and I'll leave you with this, condition with the helmet on. Because especially when you get into practice, usually teams mandatory have to spend a certain amount of hours with helmets on, and sometimes a lot of guys aren't used to having to run the type of, I guess you could say, extra weight when they're doing conditioning. So maybe once, twice a week, you guys run some sprints, do 10, 40-yard sprints, put a helmet on, maybe put your pads on, just to get you comfortable with that. Because if you can do all those things, trust me, I think you'll have a much easier time getting used to getting hit and have a much easier transition into tackle football.